I shall design this computer for you, and I shall name it also unto you, and it shall be called
Guggith's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, what a dull name.
2022 was an absolutely amazing year for movie fans across the world. We saw so many records broken this year with new stories being told for everyone to enjoy. I, among many else, saw a good chunk of movies this year. I saw 23 brand new movies this year alone, and since January, I have kept a list of every movie I've seen and what I thought of it at the time when I saw it. Today, I'll be running through all 23 movies to tell you which ones are worthy of streaming, wherever they might be, and which ones are not. I'll be ranking the following 23 movies on the following criteria. 1. Acting. How good was the cast in the role they put to screen? 2. Cinematography. Did the director of photography and camera crew get creative with where they placed the camera? 3. Writing. Was the movie predictable, or were there movies that left me stunned? And last but definitely not least, 4. Enjoyment. A movie can't be good if you don't even enjoy watching it in the first place. Before we go any further, I'd like to note that there are 2 movies I have not yet seen this year, which are Everything Everywhere All at Once and Avatar: The Way of Water, along with these other movies you see on screen now. I don't want to see any comments that I forgot it or thought it wasn't good. I just haven't had the time to see them yet. We also do have a guest speaker for some of our entries today. Everyone, please welcome Doctorpong.
Hello.
I left some of his stuff down below, so go be nice and check him out. He helped out with today's video. Without any further introduction, here's every single movie I saw in 2022 ranked. Did you really expect anything else at the bottom of the list? Morbius is the worst movie that was released this year, and yet somehow it memed its way back into the theaters only to bomb again. Remember the intro when I said, we saw so many records broken this year with new stories being told for everyone to enjoy? Morbius is one of them. Not because it shattered the box office, no, because it flopped and then got re-released only to flop again. The fact that I paid $11 entry into my local theater and paid more money to get food delivered only to sit there and watch Morbius on opening weekend was astounding. I would be disappointed in myself, but I have an excuse, which is the misleading marketing and trailer promotion. In the trailers, we were promised Oscorp, Toby's Spider-Man being mentioned, as well as the Daily Bugle from his universe, and most damning of all, Michael Keaton's Vulture from the MCU playing a major role in the film. We only ended up actually getting one of those in the movie, and it was with some of the worst dialogue I've seen in a movie in such a long time.
Not sure how I got here. Has to do with Spider-Man, I think. I'm still figuring this place out, but I think a bunch of guys like us should team up. Could do some good. Intriguing.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
This scene is something that I would expect to come out of Disney XD, not a blockbuster Hollywood movie with Matt Smith, Michael Keaton, and Jared Leto in it. With the new bill passed that says people can sue movie studios over misleading trailers, Sony should have piles of papers on their desk from angry fans. Morbius is the simplest and most recent example that we as an industry should stop casting Jared Leto in things. The last good movie he was in was American Psycho in 2000.
For battles, little Mjolnir over here taking a nap.
I am so insanely angry that a movie from my favorite studio is sitting directly next to Morbius on my list for 2022 movies. Thor: Love and Thunder is another movie that looked so promising from the marketing just to be awful in hindsight. They promised a witty comedy of Ragnarok with the same team developing it, but with new and better additions to the cast like Natalie Portman returning as Mighty Thor and goddamn Christian Bale as the main villain. Not only did he get wasted as a villain, but so did Natalie Portman. Both are A-list actors that should have been used for much more than this. I don't get how you can go from Ragnarok, which is one of the best MCU movies from the mind of Taika Waititi, to this. From the exact same mind who made Ragnarok funny and gave new life to Thor's character to a movie that completely erases that development and substitute for funny, witty, happy-go-lucky Thor. It does not work. It reminds me of The Last Jedi to The Rise of Skywalker. Last Jedi was made by Rian Johnson after J.J. Abrams stepped down to make a story that he continued from The Force Awakens, but made it his own. Fast forward to The Rise of Skywalker, and everything's different, and the last movie is thrown out the window like garbage.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
That's how it feels between Ragnarok and Love and Thunder, but weirdly with the same writer. Maybe if this was earlier in the MCU, before Ragnarok and Infinity War, it might have worked. But compare the character of Thor from Infinity War to how he acts now in Love and Thunder. Both movies, he's still goofy like in Ragnarok, but in Love and Thunder, he doesn't get that balance of serious and grounded moments with the witty moments. We barely see any serious Thor that people fell in love with in Infinity War and Endgame, but instead we get this mediocre mess of a character.
I've got
got a partner in many crimes. I'm gonna ask him to help, okay? Hey, Michael!
Halloween Ends is a disappointing end to a franchise that had such a high and mighty start. Halloween 2018 is one of my favorite horror movies to date. It rejuvenated the franchise and the character after years of awful sequels. And I thought we were finally done with that era of bad Michael Myers movies, but oops, no we aren't. I assumed it was common knowledge to most movie studios that you don't introduce a new character and sideline the old one in the final movie of his own franchise. But apparently that needs to be spelled out for Universal. In the final movie of his trilogy, you need to let him go insane. You do not let some random pseudo-elevated kid deck him in the sewers and take over his mantle in the final movie of his trilogy. That's not what you do. And it was all for nothing anyway, because the random dork dies in the last 15 minutes to let Michael go insane. But by then, it's way too late. We already spent the entire movie with this random kid, and the movie is about to end anyway. Michael can only go insane for about 5 minutes, only to die and get crushed in a steel grinder. It was a satisfying end to the character if you ignore the entire movie besides the last 15 minutes. If you like Michael Myers, I suggest you skip this one and pretend it ended at Halloween Kills.
Gray! What the fuck are you doing?
Jurassic World Dominion is an awful way to end a series that was doing so well in the past two movies. I am actually so tired of talking about disappointing ends of a series. We've had too many this year. It's not funny or fair. Why did some studios just churn out random nonsense while the others popped off? Again, let me reiterate, this is not how you end a series. It's also one of the worst ways you use fan service and nostalgia to get people to buy a ticket. Take No Way Home for an example. To me, it's the perfect way to give fan service, to drive it home with the story. In No Way Home, you couldn't have replaced Toby and Andrew with any other character and have it still be the same. It had to be them in order for this to work. In Jurassic World Dominion, you could have replaced any of the original actors with some random new character, and their plot relevance would still be the same. This is not how you do fan service or how to end a trilogy. Do better, Universal.
Jerry, I'm gonna tell you something I've never told anyone. We need to go to Panda Express.
Let's start this off by acknowledging I am not the target audience. However, I thought this movie was okay. Now, I don't care that's female-led, like all those other weirdos on YouTube that are just get mad when women, get to do stuff. My problem was that this movie's message was the same as Encanto, which Disney put out a few months before. Now, I'm aware that Pixar and Disney Animation are two completely different studios. However, you gotta have some communication between your departments, because people don't like seeing the same thing twice, or, having the same message twice, unless you're Avatar and James Cameron. Anyway, this was a rare Pixar L. Luca and Soul were so good, I expected this to be another banger, but I can't blame them too much. Why try when Disney just puts your movies onto a streaming service and doesn't even try to put it in theaters anymore?
You were right. I'll always be a villain.
You know something is seriously wrong with your movie when Minions: The Rise of Gru is above it in a ranking video. I am looking you directly in the eyes through your computer screen right now to tell you that I would rather sit down and watch Minions: The Rise of Gru than anything of these big blockbuster movies that came before it on this list. Of course I participated in the Gentle Minions trend, which I thought was the funniest thing ever, because I worked at a movie theater during the time of this trend. My theater did allow people in suits, unlike some other theaters, which allowed so many funny interactions with guests that gave me and my coworkers a pretty good laugh. But it's down on the list because the trend kind of overshadowed the actual movie. It's still a Minions movie. There's so much I can take of those little shits without wanting to merge onto a highway without looking. Around the middle of the second act was my breaking point, and I couldn't handle it anymore, which sucked because there was still 45 minutes left in the movie. The redeeming qualities of the movie is that it's an origin story for one of my favorite cartoon villains ever, Gru. And that's honestly it. There really isn't that much to talk about. It's Minions. Minions: The Rise of Gru. It's a funny trend and an origin story mixed to make a pretty meh movie.
I love The Rock. He's so cool. Black Adam's cool. I don't know if Black Adam committed tax fraud, like The Rock. This was a weird movie. I got distracted by the Cyclone Lady a lot. Can't remember the plot, to be honest. I liked Dr. Fate, but he died. And Hawkman was really annoying, but he was pretty cool. Like, get that Mr. Zaza, he needs to chill. Noah Centineo is just there. Like most movies he's in, he's just there to attract teenage girls. Also, I hate that stupid kid that followed The Rock around, because I'm really jealous and I wish I was that kid. Oh, also, I think there's some message about exploiting the earth because of that weird, glow rock. I don't know. It's kind of like Unobtainium from the Funny Blue People movie.
Fucking hit me with the phone, dick!
Scream 5 is another example of sequels that were not needed, but had some substance to make it worth watching. Well, yes, the writing is some of the worst in the entire franchise, mainly the scene where Mindy takes Frandy's job and explains the rules of Scream, making me want to walk out of the theater and turn off the movie every single time I watch it. Even with that, I love this movie. I'm a sucker for Scream, alright? Scream 1 is one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and with this franchise coming to its 5th movie and 6th coming out in March, I can't not love it. One of my biggest problems with movies where they bring back the original cast, especially in horror movies, is when they're afraid to kill off the original cast because it will make it controversial. Usually in legacy movies that have the cast with some newcomers, the newcomers kind of get overshadowed, not in Scream 5. Jenna Ortega playing Tara is one of my favorite horror movie characters, and that's mainly due to how well acted she is. Jenna Ortega deserves the Scream Queen role of this generation because of how outstanding she is in all of her roles. I know I talked smack on her earlier, but I also love Mindy. I'm extremely happy she survived the events of this movie and gets to come back in the next one. We also get a surprise little cameo from Dead Meat thrown in there, which made my jaw drop in the theaters. The cherry on top of all this is the guy who plays Huey in The Boys, Jack Quaid, being one of the killers in the end. It's so odd to rewatch this movie after seeing The Boys because the characters could not be more different. All in all, Scream 5 is probably the second best movie in the franchise, but it's nowhere near the original. The sequels are just bad.
So, who's the real Buzz?
I am!
Lightyear is the other 2022 Disney release that we got alongside with Turning Red. The premise of the movie is actually so cool. We get to watch the movie that inspired Andy to ask for a Buzz Lightyear toy in the original Toy Story. Chris Evans does such an amazing job of mimicking the great Tim Allen while playing Buzz in this movie. He sounds so similar when he delivers the "You're mocking me, aren't you?" line.
You're mocking me, aren't you?
You're mocking me, aren't you?
I've had such a fine time watching this movie simply because it's just a fun space action movie from Pixar. While it's marketed as fun, of course it's got some heavy-hitting moments. It wouldn't be a Pixar movie without making someone cry. That someone is me, because the scene where he opens the door to his friend's door to find out she died in the 4 years he jumped, and he didn't get to say his goodbye because he was too worried about fixing his mistake that wasn't even his fault. It's a high bar, but it reminded me of the opening scene of Up, with how sad it made me. One issue I have with the movie is I really just don't care about the side characters in the slightest. The only one that slightly has any relevance is the granddaughter of his now dead friend. As Buzz finally gets more friendly and more accepting of other people's help, he learns that he probably could have saved his people and his friend if he just let people help him. He didn't have to do it all alone, but by the time he realizes this, it's a little too late. Too late to get his friend back, but not too late to save the next generation and his people, which he does just in time. Lightyear's a pretty good movie, with a bit too many mediocre elements that bring it down a couple of notches.
Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. A movie with so many tiny gangs that you would have to watch it 20 times to find them. Now, I had heard of Chip and Dale before, but I never gave a damn about them before this movie. And after watching it, I still don't. While it is a fun ride, you have to have prior knowledge of the characters to be able to fully appreciate the movie and their relationships. Although Paul Rudd's cameo does bring it up by one. By the way, Guggoth likes this movie more, so that's why it's higher, but I broke into his house and wrote this segment, so don't call the cops, please.
He's just resting.
In pieces! That man is dead!
He's so sleepy.
Spirited, a good movie that is about 20 minutes too long. The music and choreography is incredible, and the performances by Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell carry the movie, while Octavia Spencer is unfortunately pushed aside. Now, to explain why the movie feels too long, I'm gonna have to spoil it, so jump to and come back later. Okay, after Ryan learns of Josh's fate, he's no longer unredeemable, right? Wrong. The movie has to stretch 20 more minutes and teach him the same lesson again when it could have ended right there, but a nice Christmas musical that, for once, didn't want to make you blow your ears out with a shotgun.
Combat Conquest!
Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie, is a mouthful of a name to say in one go, but it's also the new Ninja Turtles show made by Nickelodeon. The show ran for 2 seasons before a movie came out in August of 2022. 2 of my friends convinced me to watch it earlier this year before the movie came out, so that's what I did. Do you need to watch the 2 seasons to understand the movie? Nope. Did I do it anyway? Yes. The movie follows the turtles you know and love, paired up with Casey Jones from the future, to warn them of an incoming Krang invasion that destroys the world in the time he is from. The movie is layered with great emotional beats and character development for everyone all around. It's a great time, but it also destroys you at times. Who knew that the people who made Henry Danger could make me feel so much for a turtle voiced by Sonic the Hedgehog? Give it a watch on Netflix if you love the Ninja Turtles. It's worth your time.
Focus on the hottest thing you can think of.
Okay then. I'm thinking of your mother.
The movie that is just shy of making it into the top 10 of the year, we have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. While a good movie, Multiverse of Madness suffers from too high expectations from fans. By absolutely no means is it a bad movie, but if you expect so much from a movie, especially cameo-wise, it can feel lackluster to get the real thing. While coming off of No Way Home, when everyone was theorizing that Tobey and Andrew would show up for it to actually happen, I think fans assumed Marvel is always saying the same thing as them, so the theories will always be correct. Which, in Multiverse of Madness' case, it was not. For the cameos we did get, I love all of them, especially Reed Richards and Black Bolt. I've always been a massive Inhumans and Fantastic Four fanboy, which I was insanely pissed off when the Inhumans got robbed in Miss Marvel, making her a mutant when she's probably the most famous Inhuman.
Like a mutation.
And then when the Fantastic Four were mutilated in 2015. Plus the ultimate fan cast for the past 10 years, John Krasinski, playing the role of Reed Richards, only for him to get killed off in the next 5 minutes, basically telling fans to shut up. They got the thing they begged for years, but it isn't a permanent thing. Who knows? It might be, but don't be surprised or angry if it's not. With this being a sequel to a character who's already been fleshed out and expanded since his first movie in 2016 with Infinity War and Endgame, we don't really get that much development for Strange outside of letting go of a past love. Strange gets to jump right into the weirdness and let other characters develop because we already know him and what he can do. Similarly to No Way Home, Strange is playing the role of the mentor to another character, this one being America Chavez, easily being one of the best parts of the movie. Xochitl Gomez is actually such a good addition to the MCU. I actually love her portrayal of the character and cannot wait to see more of her. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, being the villain, Wanda Maximoff. I will go on record and say that WandaVision is one of the most overrated Marvel projects of all time, and especially ruined by the finale. The ending was the only good part of the finale, with Wanda finally letting go and finding the errors of her ways, grieving in an actually healthy way and learning from her mistakes, instead of kidnapping an entire town. Multiverse of Madness takes that and throws it in the garbage out back. At the end of WandaVision, she let go. She found a good way of processing her grief, and she accepted that Vision is gone and her kids are not real. But suddenly, in Multiverse of Madness, she's angry again and doing evil stuff because we need to tie this into WandaVision while needing a villain. Oops, she's attacking people again because she's having dreams of her fake kids across the multiverse. Wanda is at her worst in this. I actually despise what they did to her character. And would you look at that? By the end of the movie, she arrives at the same area of what her character was in WandaVision, making her reign of terror in this movie absolutely useless. A better fit for the role of villain of this movie would have been Nightmare instead of Wanda, but oh well, you get what you get.
Closed! I win, and you...
Leading us into the top 10 for 2022, we have The Bad Guys by DreamWorks. I will go on record and say that DreamWorks has a hit. It's a near-perfect movie and can be better than most other Disney Pixar movies. The Bad Guy proves that the studio isn't a joke anymore and can still deliver good stories when they try. I hope this gets them to actually start trying really hard because, oh my god, is this movie amazing. I never thought in my life a movie about animal criminals learning to enjoy being good guys could be so heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time. Taking that the animals most people are afraid of anyway and using them to serve the purpose was also genius. Wolf's character development of learning to be liked instead of feared is so somber yet rewarding. It's so satisfying to watch. Definitely one of my favorite animated movies in recent years. This one gets to go up there with Encanto and The Mitchells vs. the Machines. Definitely worth watching if you want a heartwarming story about a group of friends learning to change while remaining friends and who they are. At number 9, we have Bullet Train. Absolutely love Bullet Train. It's so silly. It's so much fun. Too many A-list actors in one movie can sometimes dull it down a little bit, but not Bullet Train. I actually forgot how funny Brad Pitt was. He's definitely up there with some of my favorite actors, and Bullet Train just helps him climb so many spaces so quickly. Usually when a movie slows down to explain the backstory of a character to help the present version keep up, it's too slow and it takes valuable time out of the movie, but nope, not Bullet Train. It's nice, quick, and gives reasonable motivations. usually only to kill the character with the coolest backstory in minutes after his origin story, but, you know, movies gotta do what movies gotta do. While Brad Pitt does amazing like always, he's outshined by Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Brian Tyree Henry playing one of my favorite duos of the year, Lemon and Tangerine. The friendship between these two characters is so strong, it's heartbreaking to watch it come to an end during a movie. The entire movie is home to some of the best action in all of 2022. Where else could you find an entire action scene told from the point of view of a Fiji water bottle? Only Bullet Train, which is why it's great and you should go watch it.
Is that a Patsy? Yes! That's a lightsaber, dude.
The Atom Project, a bland sci-fi movie that somehow isn't. By looking at the trailers, and even watching the movie itself, you would think that it's just another random cash grab movie with a big name, Ryan Reynolds. But it's actually a cash grab with Ryan Reynolds with a big heart. The message of the movie is one that will stick with you far after the credits roll, make you rethink your own relationships. While some of the plot lines make no sense, like the one about his wife, it's still pretty good. Wow, I think I convinced you, right? He puts it at number 8. He puts it at number 8, man. This don't deserve number 8. It doesn't deserve it. But you know who's in this? Zoe Saldana. You know what Zoe Saldana's also in? Avatar 2. You want to know my opinion about Avatar 2? Well, that movie...
Give me back my game of golf, Sonic!
Probably one of the biggest surprises of the year is Sonic the Hedgehog 2 being this good. I love the first one, especially after Paramount listened to the fans and changed the design for the better. But having the second one be number 7 on my list is definitely not something I saw coming. Ben Schwartz in the first movie kind of had the Sonic charm, but it wasn't fully defined yet. But by the time the second one starts, he nailed it, almost perfectly. Obviously, there's still room for improvement, but that's where Sonic 3 will come in eventually. It just hit me that we're a little over 2 years away from the third one releasing, and it's too far. I want it now. Jim Carrey announced that Sonic 2 would be his last film before retirement, which some people think is him lying to not spoil the fact that he's going to be in Sonic 3. But if Sonic 2 was truly his last movie, he struck gold. His career is nothing short of perfection, and to end it on such a high note is a great feat. We have 2 newcomers in this movie, Knuckles and Tails. Both suffer from new character syndrome, but they have plenty of time to be fleshed out and loved without making Sonic or any of the other pre-existing characters suffer. Idris Elba as Knuckles is something I never knew I needed until I saw this movie. You know a movie is good when even the credit sequence is amazing. I would willingly ask to help clean up theaters after Sonic played if it meant I could hear the amazing Kid Cudi sing Stars in the Sky, which was so good that it made it onto my Spotify Wrapped this year. If a song from a kid's movie can do that, I'd say the entire movie is pretty damn good.
Oh, hell no!
Nova's the most recent film directed by Jordan Peele, and god damn, this guy is insane. He popped off with 3 very different movies, all within the same genre, in 5 years. That's crazy to me. Even crazier is that all of them are amazing and horrifying. What he does with these characters and the very simple fear of aliens invading and crafts it into the perfect story is nothing short of genius. The scene where the entire population of the show gets abducted and digested by the aliens only to be spat out later over the house is absolutely horrifying. With the final act of this movie was such a good time that had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. The solution that Kiki comes up with to use against the aliens with a Polaroid camera from the beginning of the movie to take a photo of the alien is so genius that I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say most people forgot existed. Absolutely amazing foreshadowing and planning all the way in Act 1 of the movie. If you're looking for a movie to scare you but also deliver a wholesome family story directly to you, Nope is the movie to watch. All the characters are great, and the movie keeps you hooked from start to finish. Definitely one of the best horror movies this year, but unfortunately just short of the true best horror movie this year. Speaking of that movie...
The phone. The phone is ringing.
Leading us into the top 5 for 2022, we have The Black Phone. The Black Phone is the best horror movie that we've gotten in 2022, and one of the best horror movies we've gotten in recent years. With the entire year being mostly full of meh or just good horror movies, The Black Phone sticks out of the bunch. The director of the movie leaving Doctor Strange 2 and rebounding to make this is such a great clapback. Even if a little bit of The Black Phone's energy went into the original script of Doctor Strange 2, it would have made the movie so much better than it actually was. But for that movie to suffer a teeny bit for The Black Phone to shine, I will take any day of the week. Scott Derrickson takes the very simple kidnapping story and adds so much emotion and depth into it that it makes me tear up every time. Finn being able to use the broken black phone in the basement to talk to the kids of the grabber has already killed to get their wisdom and advice to escape will never fail to make me emotional. Especially the friendship he had with Robin from the beginning of the movie all the way to the end. In the beginning of the movie, Robin taught Finn how to stand up for himself, and he didn't leave without protecting him one last time and teaching him how to defeat the grabber once and for all. Finn using all the knowledge of his pack's victims to his advantage to finally end the grabber's reign of terror is such a triumphant moment. Throughout the entire movie, the grabber tells Finn that the phone doesn't work and it's just all in his head. But in his final moments, all his victims come back to haunt him one last time. It's so good! If you haven't watched it yet, you're missing out big time. I adore this movie so much, it's not even funny.
No! Layers! Onions have layers.
Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, is the most recent release, only coming out on Netflix about 3 weeks ago. But even in its short time to sit with me, it's stuck its place on this list this far up. Usually it takes a bit for my opinion on a movie to truly form, unless the movie is really good. So what does that tell you about Glass Onion? I won't spoil the twist of the movie due to it only being out for a couple of weeks, but the way it's layered into the plot that you don't even see coming from the start. Even if you do manage to see it coming from the start, you don't see the full details about the twist coming. That's how you do a satisfying twist. You layer it on top of other things. Rian Johnson is an absolute genius when it comes to writing. He can so casually drop one of the best Star Wars movies and then go on to make Knives Out 1 and 2 only in a 5-year span. The cast of Glass Onion is almost as perfect as the first Knives Out. Chris Evans did a phenomenal job in the first movie, but we have so many star-shining characters here in the second one. We have Dave Bautista, Edward Norton, Madison Klein, and of course Daniel Craig. I love that the only thing that keeps these franchises together connectively is Daniel Craig to return in each movie and very loosely connect the events of the two films together. I can only imagine what Rian Johnson has in mind for the third movie in the Knives Out franchise after making 2 straight masterpieces. With it only being in theaters for a week, only to release on Netflix and instantly shoot to the top in such little time, I wonder how much money they would have made if they only kept it in theaters. The top 3 movies of 2022 were the hardest to nail of this entire list. I had to watch each of these movies at least 3 times to decide where I was going to put which. While some movies will be ranked higher than others, all 3 of these movies I gave a 10 out of 10 when I first saw them. With that being said, our third place runner-up for 2022, we have Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Wakanda Forever is such a great movie. With this being the last entry in Phase 4 of the MCU, I think Marvel really needed a hit to solidify the phase and end it on the right page. Wakanda Forever hit all those notes perfectly, solidifying the end to the phase while still being its own independent story. A story all about loss, grief, and acceptance. Trying not to give into that grief and anger and accepting that's just how life it is. As the late and great Chadwick Boseman said in Civil War,
"Vengeance has consumed you. It's consuming them. I'm done letting it consume me."
His sister needs to learn the exact same message that he learned all the way back in Civil War. Wakanda Forever feels like such a perfect sequel to the original. Marvel made it extremely respectful, because unlike someone in their universe dying, the real person who put thought, effort, and heart into this character on screen for millions to enjoy passed away. So much thought, kindness, and passion went into crafting Wakanda Forever. It's a perfect representation of what loss means to people. Everyone grieves in different ways, and Wakanda Forever shows that how all the characters mourn the loss of T'Challa is different. In a phase of the MCU that most people overlook or constantly rag on for not being as good as the last phase, Wakanda Forever delivers a beautiful story that hopefully shuts those people up.
Everyone is. Even Tom Cruise knows he's short and nuts.
At the number 2 spot for 2022, we have Top Gun Maverick. Top Gun Maverick was such an outstanding movie, mainly thanks to its amazing action, great cast and chemistry, and stunning cinematography. Most movies that have such a long gap in between the sequels usually feel like nostalgia bait just to bring in some cash for the studio, which it did. Top Gun stayed in theaters for over 6 months and was one of 3 movies this year to make $1 billion. Tom Cruise is back as Maverick and gives the egotistical performance that Maverick had in the first movie, but layers it with new development. After the events of the first movie, Maverick now has someone other than himself to protect. He can't make the same mistake twice, so he has to put aside some of his egotistical traits in order to protect Goose's son, Rooster, played by Miles Teller. The entire cast does so well, even the side characters, like my main man, Bob. While everyone shines, one actor shines among the rest, and of course I'm talking about Miles Teller. The dynamic between Rooster and Maverick is some of the best chemistry of a duo I've seen in such a long time. The development of Rooster hating Maverick for protecting him when it doesn't seem to him like he was protecting, up to the moment where they're trapped behind enemy lines and must trust each other to get home safely. The movie is a non-stop blast from start to finish with some of the best visuals I've seen in a while. That's obviously due to most of the flying scenes being real. The cast had to learn how to fly jets for their roles in this movie. Obviously the scenes where they endanger the planes aren't fully real, but they feel so real. I can only imagine seeing this movie in 4D, and I'm kind of angry at myself that I didn't while it was available. Usually this is the point where I tell you to go watch Top Gun Maverick if you haven't seen it yet, but I'm pretty sure everyone and their mom saw Top Gun while it had its 6-month run in theaters all over the world. But wait, there's one more spot on this list. Who could it belong to? The Batman is the best movie released in the year of 2022. Easily my most anticipated movie going into the year, and it did not disappoint in the slightest. I was left stunned for days after I saw it. With the absolutely outstanding cast, extremely talented director, and beautiful score to accompany it, The Batman proves to anyone who doubted it that it is the best take on Batman. When they announced years ago that Robert Pattinson would be playing Batman, everybody thought that Warner Bros. Was on a new level. They really think that the emo guy from Twilight can understand the character of Batman and adapt it to screen perfectly? They did, and they were right about it, and it paid off. Robert Pattinson's take on Batman is such a triumph. Accompanying him in the cast, we also have Paul Dano as the Riddler, who I've loved ever since Swiss Army Man. His take on the character is nothing short of perfection. If he's not nominated for an Oscar for his performance, the Oscars missed one of the best performances of the year. The Batman is a movie that lets Bruce Wayne discover who he is and what his job as Batman is. Throughout the movie, he learns that the Batman is not someone who should be feared, but loved by the common population of Gotham and only feared by the criminals. In the beginning of the movie, it's shown that even the civilian that Batman just saved is terrified of him. But by the end, with the Batman out in daylight for the first time, the lady he just saved doesn't want to let go. She feels safe with him, and that's who Batman is. Someone that people should feel safe with, and not living in fear of him unless they have something to fear. This movie tells that arc throughout the story so well. The story of Bruce learning from the sins of his father and how corrupt his city has been for decades truly shows that it's perfect for a modern-day Batman story. For once, a Batman movie lets Batman truly shine the title of world's greatest detective, with him being able to see things the entire city, the police included, miss. While not being an origin story, it still lets Bruce figure things out while still being new to the job in his first year. The Batman is a triumph in storytelling from the mind of a genius, and I for one cannot wait to see where things go for here, as Matt Reeves crafts the rest of his saga. While you may not agree that The Batman is number 1 of the year, it's safe to say that this makes your list of top 10 and maybe even top 5, because it can be enjoyed by all. It can be enjoyed by Batman superfans that they finally get a solo Batman movie after 10 years, but also enjoyed by the common viewer that Batman is back and he is here to stay.